We are going to completely shatter everything you thought you knew about the act of prayer. Seriously. Whether you're religious, spiritual, or just a really curious student of human psychology, the way we've all been taught to ask for what we want, well, it might actually be the exact reason we aren't getting it. Today, we're looking at the art of prayer through a totally different lens, not as an act of asking, but as an act of yielding.
Now, we've got to start right out of the gate by confronting the massive elephant in the room. Every single day, all over the globe, millions of desperate, emotionally charged prayers seem to just hit the ceiling and bounce right back down, right? We've all been there. If prayer is supposed to work, why does so many heartfelt pleas go completely unanswered? Well, the source material we're unpacking today suggests something mind-blowing. It's not because no one is listening. It's actually because the fundamental mechanics of how we pray are entirely backward.
Just think about the stark contrast between our old habits and this radical new paradigm. The old way of praying basically operates on begging some external force to give you something you don't already have. It's totally rooted in a state of lack. But the philosophy we're exploring today, popularized by the mystic Neville Goddard, completely flips this on its head. His way asserts that true prayer is about claiming the desired state from within yourself, so it's not about begging at all, it's about becoming.
So to understand how to pray correctly, we first have to understand the grand illusion. Here's section 1, the illusion of unanswered prayers. Neville Goddard, who is a really prominent mid-20th century thinker, wrote extensively on what he called the true principle of expression. And his radical assertion is basically this: you do not get what you want, you get what you are. The universe is not some cosmic vending machine, it's an echo chamber. If you're consciously feeling poor and you pray for wealth, your prayer is actually being answered perfectly. Crazy, right? You are being rewarded with exactly what you are conscious of being, poverty. So begging for riches while feeling deeply poor literally guarantees you're just going to manifest more poverty. To fix this massive error in how we operate, we first have to uncover who you actually are in this whole equation. Moving on to section 2, the true identity, discovering the I am. Goddard's teachings draw heavily from ancient texts, particularly the Bible, but he interprets them as psychological dramas rather than literal historical events. And right at the core of this is the definition of I am. In this philosophy, I am isn't some figure up in the sky, it is your own human consciousness. Your awareness of being is the sole reality. It's literally the only door through which any manifestation, any event, object, or circumstance can ever pass into your physical world.
And the absolutely crucial point here is this: I am, your consciousness, is the only door through which anything can pass into your world. Meaning, if you are not actively conscious of being what you seek, you are searching in vain. You cannot bring health into your world if your internal I am is deeply anchored in I am sick. You have to change that core identity right at the door of your consciousness before your physical reality can possibly change.
But wait, how on earth do you claim to be wealthy when your bank account is completely overdrawn? That brings us to section 3, closing the door of the senses. Okay, so to pray correctly, you must absolutely refuse to observe or engage with the physical evidence of your lack. Think about all those things that immediately trigger panic. Empty bank accounts, unpaid bills staring you in the face, physical pain, cold rational logic, your current physical limitations. We all know exactly how stubborn our brains can be when we're staring down a past due notice, right? But if you judge your reality strictly by what your physical senses are telling you right now, you are going to remain enslaved to those limitations. You can't serve two masters here. You cannot hyper-focus on an unpaid bill and simultaneously claim the feeling of financial freedom. The physical evidence must be entirely shut out, no exceptions.
And this is exactly why the ancient instruction is simply to go within and shut the door. It's not about hiding in a literal room somewhere. It means mentally retreating from the chaotic noise of the outside world. You have to actively lower your internal volume. Forcefully but calmly shut the door on your physical senses. Deny what your eyes and ears are screaming at you about your limitations, and step into the quiet sanctuary of your own mind, where you can simply just be.
Now, you might be wondering about the actual mechanics here. How does this invisible shift inside your quiet mind actually change hard physical reality? Let's look at section 4, the law of reversibility. Reverse engineering reality.
Think about this, like a bidirectional flow of energy. If you physically achieve a massive goal, it naturally creates a very specific psychological feeling inside of you, right? Like pure joy, deep relief, overwhelming gratitude. Well, the law of reversibility states that because the energy transformations are reversible, if you can successfully assume and sustain that exact psychological feeling first, it will literally force the physical event to happen to match it. You are reverse engineering reality by starting with the feeling of the end result. It is a real game changer.
So how do you actually assume that feeling without constantly fighting yourself? This brings us to Section 5, the art of yielding. Effortless surrender.
The absolute greatest misconception about prayer and manifestation is that it requires this immense, exhausting effort. It doesn't. True prayer is completely effortless. It is this open-handed act of yielding. It's surrendering to the feeling of the wish already being true. You don't force it to happen. You just allow yourself to feel the deep relief and gratitude that it has already happened.
And honestly, here is where most people get it completely wrong. Willpower is actually the enemy here. When you try to force reality using sheer willpower, you're implicitly acknowledging that the reality isn't here yet. That creates massive internal conflict. And guess what? The feeling of conflict will always win, which leads to ultimate failure. Yielding, on the other hand, is surrendering to the feeling. It's effortless, it's relaxed, it is highly receptive. The absolute greatest force in altering your life is peaceful acceptance, not gritted teeth.
Goddard actually uses a deeply poetic metaphor to explain this, describing prayer as an intimate spiritual marriage taking place within the quiet mind. Basically, your mind is the receptive bridal chamber, perfectly quiet and shut off from the outside world. Your desire? That's the groom knocking at the door. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, that feeling is the mystical union of the two. And the result of that? The physical manifestation is the child born into reality from that internal union. It is this beautiful act of creation that happens entirely within, long before it ever appears without.
I want to remind you of this one last time because it is so incredibly important. The physical world you experience every single day is not some fixed external tyrant. It is merely a delayed mirror. It's a perfect reflection of the internal state you have already accepted and yielded to. You don't change what's in a mirror by breaking the glass, do you? No, you change the mirror by changing the face looking into it.
Which leaves us with this final, ultimate question. If your world is really nothing more than a perfect reflection of what you are internally, what are you conscious of being right now? Are you conscious of lack, or are you ready to close the door on the senses, yield completely to the feeling of your fulfilled desires, and finally watch your reality transform? Take a moment today, go within, and truly answer that for yourself.